Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Sports Talk with Eddie, presented by Our Time Press. I do want to apologize for the late start to the show. We had a little bit of tech issues, but thankfully, we got some amazing people on the back front taking care of it. So shout out to PJ, shout out to Dewey for getting us up and running. We got a pretty good show today. Obviously, the NBA season is upon us, which I'm so excited because I need to shift my gear off something aside from the Jets. I'm pretty sure you Jets fans know exactly what I'm talking about. So, very interesting NBA season, man. Very intriguing as far as the same faces and new places. You got a couple of teams that are on the upper echelon, in both the East and the Western Conference. So we got a jam-packed show. We're gonna get into a little bit of baseball if we have time to squeeze in. Again, you guys want to talk about MVP, who's your sleeper team? We are doing call-ins, so I'll be more than happy to answer you guys' questions. And again, we just got a good jam-packed show. But I'm gonna start off normally with the season coming around. That will be the first topic, but I gotta get this crap off my chest because it's been a thorn in my side all damn week. So we're gonna get right into it, and we're gonna go with the New York Jets. Whosa? I don't know what the hell I saw Sunday. You ever tune into something and just instantly regret it and just tell yourself, "Damn, that's 3 hours that I'll never get back." That's exactly what I felt and what I saw during this Jets game. I don't know what that was. I've been watching football, I want to say 90, 97, 98, give or take, right when Neil O'Donnell was out, more in the Vinny Testaverde era with the New York Jets. So we're counting, 20 some odd years and whatnot, not to give my age and whatnot, but I've never seen any performance like what I saw on on Sunday with this Jets team. Now, again, and I said this over and over in a previous episode, this is going to be a situation where it's going to take time. It's going to take a little bit of patience. Obviously, the average New York fan, that's something that we're sort of allergic to when it comes to time and patience and results when it comes to the prototypical New York sports fan. But damn, if there was a reason to lose your patience and forget about patience, it would be exactly what I saw last week as far as the Jets' brutal performance. It was just really bad, and it seems like we can't catch a break. We can't win here in North America. We can't win in Europe. Last week's game was in London, and I just you could point your finger and point so many reasonings as to why they lost the game. I mean, listen, myself and a few other peoples, I think we had a better chance of putting up a better performance than what this Jets football team did last Sunday. I don't know what's going on, and it was this. This is despicable. Now, again, we all talk about the rebuilding process and how longevity of a process that it is to rebuild the team from the ground up, create the new culture and stuff like that. But when you have a game like that, you ultimately take a step back, and it ultimately turns into a culture shock of some sort because this was just abysmal. Um, Team is now 0-6. They go down in defeat to a pretty good Denver Broncos team. So we gotta give credit where credit is due. The Broncos are a top 10 defense, and if they weren't a top 10 defense, they sure solidified that this past week against his Jets team. But this performance by the Jets was historically bad for numerous reasons. The team finished with negative 10 net passing yards, which marks the worst performance in franchise history. The offense was just terrible. It was hot garbage. There's so many words you could talk about this offense as far as how dreadful it was. And it ultimately, as a fan, and not only as a fan, but just fans in general, if you had any questions about Justin Fields as far as him being or not, I think it pretty much solidified those answers or those questions and whatnot. As far as where he's at right now, there seems to be no progress. There's a lot of timid to his game. There's a lot of indecisiveness towards his game. And when you have a quarterback that's timid and not really doing what he normally does on a game to game basis, on a play to play basis, you could ultimately see that. And I'm pretty sure that's exactly what Denver sniffed out with Justin Fields. He went 9 for 17 for 45 yards. That's the entirety of his stat line. He was sacked nine. He was sacked 9 times, and a total of that was a loss of 55 yards, which is equivalent to the negative 10 net passing yards. Ridiculous, ridiculous. He was also pressured on 14 of 29 dropbacks, which is equivalent to how dreadful the offensive line was. Listen, we can always talk about the inconsistency with the quarterback, you know, the lack of effort that the coaches put out to get these people ready. But ultimately, I don't know what Tanner Angstring was thinking. I don't know what game plan he has, and I'm talking about the Jets offensive coordinator. But we need to take some of that heat off and just put that towards Tanner Angstring, which is the offensive coordinator of the New York Jets, because his job essentially is to make sure the quarterback is ready on Sundays. Him and the quarterback's coach at that. There was no game adjustment for Justin Fields to even have a shot against his Denver Broncos defense. And Angstring, he just didn't adjust to Fields' ineffectiveness during the game. And all in all, in the entirety of the game, they just simply had no answers for this Denver pass rush defense. To add insult to injury, which was something of a highlight for Gary Wilson, considering the fact that he was leading a lot of the categories as far as receiver goes. He goes down with a hyperextended knee, and he's going to be out for multiple weeks. So it goes back to the old saying where when it rains, it pours. And for this Jet team, it's pouring, it's raining cats and dogs. I don't I don't know if you're a coach, what do you say after a performance like that? And again, you see the press conference. The first thing people are going to ask Aaron Glenn is, who do you have at the quarterback position this Sunday against Carolina? Now, obviously, when you're a head coach, you're going to defend your quarterback, and visibly he was visibly upset about the question as far as the quarterback goes and stuff like that. But you know, the prototypical Jets fan, the question does come into your head: is Justin Field the right guy right now? Because the option right now is to go to Tyrod Taylor, who essentially right now seems like the better quarterback than Justin Fields right now. Now, is it a situation where maybe the quarterback coach, maybe the offensive coordinator could find a way to design a better play calling to design Fields' style of play? It's possible, but the knock is, and it always will be, quarterbacks get the blame, and so does the head coaches as far as losses, especially the one that the Jets suffered this past Sunday. It was the worst performance. It was the worst football performance that I've ever seen. And I've watched a lot of football in my lifetime, and you really can't make this stuff up. You really cannot make this stuff up. Um, it pretty much puts a cherry on top of how damn difficult it is to be a Jets fan. It's so bad. A lot of head scratching. You look at the stands, you see fans with the Jet jersey with the paper bag around their head. It's really bad time, and this Jets team is essentially losing at a historic level. There's got to be some change. You got to be able to at least go out there and have some fight, because at 0-6, essentially the season is over. That's just what it is. Essentially, the season is over. You're a quarter of the way out. You pretty much have to win, especially in this AFC East division. You pretty much have to win a good 10 games to at least solidify a wild card, which at this point it's a foregone conclusion. But damn, put some fight to this. Have some heart. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's a locker room issue. I don't know if Aaron Glenn hasn't pushed the right buttons. But this a performance like last week can never repeat itself. It just can't, because a performance like that, I'm surprised there wasn't somebody that lost their job this past Monday. And again, I'm not gonna come on this show and start pointing fingers, especially when it comes to people losing their job. At the end of the day, you know, we're all humans and stuff like that, and we all have to go out and make a certain living. But as a fan, this is unacceptable. There's just no this there's just no reason for them to go out and have the performance like they do. Granted, can't take away anything from what Bo Nix did. I mean, technically speaking, that Broncos team didn't really play well either, but they did enough to knock off the Jets. But again, this is something. Hopefully, there was some sort of players meeting going on. Now you're faced with a non-confident quarterback in Justin Fields, who pretty much has to find a number one receiver. Is it going to be Alan Lazard? Let's just face facts. That contract that Lazard signed about 2 years ago is going to go down as one of the worst contracts in Jets history. I'll put that right up there with the Jermaine Johnson contract from a couple of years ago when he was highly touted, out of the Rams, and he signed his big money deal and did absolutely nothing. This is just as bad. Now, again, what comes with that? What comes with an 0-6 start? You start hearing rumors. You start hearing speculations about potentially the Jets being sellers. Now, again, the names that you're gonna probably hear are gonna be the top tier names. Obviously, it's not gonna be Garrett Wilson. It's not gonna be Sauce Gardner, considering the fact that they just recently signed long-term deals. But if the Jets happen to be intrigued by a package, which includes probably sending away Quentin Williams, the more rumors that I've heard within the past few hours is their running back Brees Hall. I don't know how I don't know what a trade would look like, but at least let's just say for pretend. And I don't want this to happen because it'll probably lead me to even a deeper depression being a Jets fan. But you would think that Quentin Williams, who's probably one of the cornerstones of the Jets, especially on defense, arguably their best player on defense. Maybe if I'm intrigued with a first round pick, maybe I'll pull the trigger. Maybe more another draft compensation along with that first round pick. I mean, you just can't give away a guy of a caliber of Quentin Williams, especially considering the fact that he's just entering. He's pretty much in the middle of the prime of his career. So, you know, as the trading deadline approaches, I believe the trading deadline is the first week of November. I'm pretty sure we're going to hear Quentin Williams' name thrown around. A lot of trade mock trades are out there involving Brees Hall. There's going to be a lot of top tier playoff teams who are on the market for a running back. And what make matters worse is that Brees Hall went into X and had some of these cryptic tweets that he put out as far as his ability to play and him wanting, pretty much in a nutshell, he's seeking a better platform to display what he got. And it's hard to do that when the offensive line can't create holes for you to gain yards. It's hard to do that when your quarterback can't throw a 5-yard post route or a screen at that. So these are minor things that you would think will be able to fix, but considering the fact of how horrible they look, it makes you question yourself, especially as a Jet fan. It makes you question, like, what the hell is going on? This is just unacceptable. And again, I can't tell myself, and this is just me being unbiased, I can't sit here and say, you know what? Maybe Aaron Glenn is just a good defensive coordinator, and that's all it will be. I still think his presence is wanted in the locker room. I still think that he still has the potential of creating the new culture. But 6 weeks in, and maybe this is a part of me where the fanboy comes out of me, it's 6 weeks too long. You ultimately want to see some strides. Now, again, am I expecting Fields to go out next week against the Panthers and go 20 for 28 and throw 225 yards and two TDs? That would be nice, but at this point, it's highly unlikely because he just looks uncomfortable. And when you get sacked 9 times during a game, that's what it's gonna do to you. It's more of the psyche and more of the mental aspect of wanting to make a play and overthinking it. And then these defensive schemes, they see that body language, and then if you're getting hurried 14 out of 29 dropbacks, I mean, you're not having any time throwing a ball. It seems like the defense is reading pretty much everything that Angstrang is throwing at it to try to, you know, diffuse the opposing defense. So at this point, it's just like, what do you do as a quarterback? Um, I'll tell you one thing, and I'm so surprised. It's Thursday, and I'm so surprised that the Jets have not made the switch to quarterback. And this is the issue that I have with coaching in New York. There are a certain selective amount of players that, yes, if they're having a bad streak, maybe, just maybe, they can be excused, and maybe there's certain ways that that particular player and the coaching staff can find a way to get them back. If I'm going off the top, maybe somebody like a Gary Wilson, when he's right and whatnot. But before this injury, he was pretty much leading a lot of the offensive categories as far as receiving goes. Unfortunately, he's going to be out for multiple weeks, as reported. Aaron Judge, of course, if you're going on the baseball side. Jalen Brunson, if you're thinking basketball. I'm not too familiar with hockey, but I know the main guy in hockey right now for the New York Rangers is JT Miller. So, and I bring up these people because it's like even the top tier players, they go through these droughts, they go through these funks, they go through these slumps, but they can be corrected. But again, and it's not to down Justin Fields. He's still young, still 26 years old, and potentially he could still have a good career ahead. But unfortunately, he is going through some hard times right now that is not equaling to wins for the ball club. And I see his situation as from a coaching standpoint, so much similar to what the Yankees just dealt with Anthony Volpe. I don't know what it is, but these coaches with certain amount of players, they just have a hard time letting go. They have a hard time making that switch to another player that could probably be beneficiary, may not give you the same type of production, but when a player is struggling and there's no progress, there's no movement within the offense, or you have to make that move. We'll get into the Yankee talks a little bit later on the program, but it's sort Justin Fields' situation is sort of similar to the Volpe situation, whereas, okay, you're 0-6, you're coming off. Well, from a quarterback standpoint, this was arguably his worst start in his pro career, let alone the franchise's worst performance in the career. So if things tend to go haywire the first 2 quarters in this game against the Panthers, you're back in American soil. You're back with the home fans in MetLife Stadium. You got to make the switch to Tyrod Taylor. If they don't make the switch, something is really wrong. Something is going on because I don't know. I mean, there doesn't seem to be any life with this team. And for a young team that's up and coming, for a young team that's in the rebuilding process, for a young team that on paper is, I mean, listen, to be fair, Three, 4 wins, maybe even five was probably projected if you're asking me. But this is looking like that Detroit Lions team who didn't win a game, I believe, in 2017. This looks that bad. And I'm not exaggerating because I'm in my feelings or whatever. But if you take time and watch that game in its entirety, you'll see why Jet fans are going off on social media. You'll see why the media is going off the way they are with this Jets team because there's just no life. And that's a very, very significantly bad sign when it comes to a ball club because ultimately that trickles down to everybody else's performance. Now you hope after a performance like that, the team finds a way to catapult themselves, dust themselves off, and we will see a much better performance. Now, again, the defense wasn't that bad. So if we're going to talk about a positive, we're going to talk about a positive for the Gents as far as the defense go. They did give up 13 points, and for the most part, especially that first quarter, you saw a little bit of life within that defense. They did come away with their first takeaway of the year. It only took 6 games, but nevertheless, it was done. And yeah, I just this I'm at of loss of word as far as what this Jets team is going to look moving forward. And the more struggles that this Jets go, the more speculations as far as them becoming sellers and just simply just open this up and just selling and getting rid of their top tier players. Again, I hope Quentin Williams is not one of those players. I love Quentin Williams. I was a big fan of Quentin Williams when he came out of Alabama. I was so stoked when they got him in the draft. But something's got to change, man. Something's really got to change with this ball club. I'm telling you, I never sat down and watched a game and regret that I watched the game, if that makes any sense. But it was just really, really bad. It was a really, really ugly, ugly performance. You could sit down, watch the game, and if your team lose, for example, I'll give you an example. The Pittsburgh game. Obviously, the Jets lost, but you saw the fight, you saw the grit, you saw the playmaking ability, you saw the potential ground and pound with Brees Hall and Allen. Now, granted, Braylon Allen is going to be out for the foreseeable future with his knee injury, so now you pretty much got Brees Hall doing the running back duties. So, and now, as I alluded to earlier, they're also going to be out with Garrett Wilson. So it just makes things a little bit more difficult as far as Fields getting a connection with another receiver. Again, that's still to be determined who that receiver will be. But the number one thing that we have to see from this Jets ball club is fight because you can't even say it's soft at this point. Soft goes out the window. It was just a lack of urgency and just a team that just looked completely lost. And again, that play calling was abysmal. There was a spot in the game where the team just let 30 seconds run off the clock. There was no damn timeout call. They did have a timeout call, and you saw the interaction between Gary Wilson and Aaron Glenn. Gary Wilson obviously visibly upset on the sideline. You let 30 seconds go off the clock. I'd be pissed off too. You could have called a timeout. You could have thrown up a Hail Mary. And I know Hail Marys is not ideal, but the particular play of the Hail Mary, it's 50-50. It can go either way. And sometimes with Hail Marys, prayers do get answered. I look at the game from last year between the Commanders and the Bears, where Jaden Daniels threw a Hail Mary heave, and guess what? It found the right hands, and ultimately they came out with that win, which pretty much catapulted how this season went. So again, you gotta do better as far as time management. I'm a little bit disappointed that I'm saying that about Aaron Glenn because if there's anybody that understands, time management and things of that nature, it would be Aaron Glenn. But again, I still got hope that there can be some progress with this team. Obviously, it's taking longer than usual, but hopefully this team gets their act together, and hopefully they'll have a better performance this Sunday as they take on a Carolina Panthers who are on cloud nine right now with their performance last week against the Dallas Cowboys. So we'll see how that goes. So right now we're gonna get into the NBA. I am so excited because, as I said on the top of the hour of the show, I need something to just take my mind off the Jets. Um, and we'll see what goes on. We'll see what's gonna happen. Obviously, the hype right now, as far as New York goes, is the New York Knicks. They returned everybody from their starting lineup. For the most part, everybody is healthy. I know Josh Hart is dealing with a thumb issue that he had dealt with most of last year. So it's still questionable whether he is going to make the starting lineup roster. And we'll see how that looks. We don't even know if he's going to be in the starting lineup or the bench. So that's going to be very interesting to see how Mike Brown constructs the starting lineup. But again, as I alluded to a couple of episodes ago on the show, I like what the Knicks did as far as adding some excitement, some size, some spacing when it comes to their bench. That was the pretty much their Achilles heel when it came to the Indiana series as far as their depth. They added probably one of the best bench scorers ever in Jordan Clarkson. So that's gonna be a good fit. I would think so. And you're bringing back Deuce McBride. We all know what he can do when he gets hot. Very streaky shooter. Has gotten better within the past couple of years on the defensive end as well. And then you got Yerson Yabusele from Philadelphia, who I think is going to be a good fit, along with Ariel Hawkporty, who should I see him playing significant minutes alongside Mitchell Robinson if Mitchell Robinson indeed comes off the bench. So we're gonna see how that looks. MVP. Again, if you guys tuned in a couple of weeks ago, I'm gonna stay with my pick. Hell for many, considering the fact of how open the Eastern Conference is. Now, obviously, top five aside from my pick, obviously Shea Gilgis Alexander is going to be in that conversation. Luka Doncic, who really dedicated himself as far as taking care of his body and whatnot. He looks absolutely amazing, and I'm excited to see what he does in a full year with the Los Angeles Lakers. Then you got the usual suspects with Nikola Jokic. Is obviously you got to put him in the MVP conversation, and then of course, you know, you have Giannis Antetokounmpo, who should be in that conversation as well. But for me, I'm gonna stick my guns, and maybe this is a bit reaching out, but I'm gonna go Jalen Brunson for MVP. I just feel last year, as far as what they went through and how he played, considering the fact that he wasn't 100%, and the East is so open with Boston losing Jason Tatum. You got Indiana losing Tyrese Halliburton. Now, I get it. There are certain teams who are on the cuffs of taking that next tier that is going to give this team a run for their money. Orlando is coming. Atlanta is coming. Detroit is coming. Those are three teams that I expect for them to improve and be sort of that mid range when it comes to playoff seeding once the season is over. But I expect Jalen Brunson to probably have his best season as a pro, and ultimately, I think it's going to be a three-horse race between him, Luka, and Luka Doncic. So, well, I said Luka Doncic. Him, Jokic. I guess you could throw in Shea there because what Shea did last year was absolutely amazing. But I'm gonna stick my guns and go Luka, Joker, and Brunson as far as who I expect to be the front runners for MVP. But I'm gonna stick to my guns like I did a couple of weeks ago on this podcast, and I'm gonna go with Jalen Brunson ultimately taking home the league's MVP this year. We had some news come in Knicks related as far as the backup point guard position. Malcolm 2 days ago, Malcolm Brogdon announced his retirement from the NBA after 9 seasons. So really, really solid point backup point guard that I thought would not only make the team but fit pretty good as far as what the Knicks are trying to do. Now, again, I know everybody's gonna say with the news that came out with Spencer Dinwiddie, man, that would be excellent. But Spencer Dinwiddie's game doesn't necessarily mesh with the Knicks style of play. Mike Brown runs a more versatile style, more of a two-way ish, which is why I feel with his coaching style, the two people that's going to excel this year for the New York Knicks will probably be their best two-way players in Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. Now, the reason why I don't feel Spencer Dinwiddie fits to their style of play is that Spencer Dinwiddie is more of a ball dominant type of person. You know, he can get you a bucket. He can get you a bucket here and there, but as far as what the Knicks trying to do, I'm not sure if that will be the proper fit. So it'll be interesting to see what the Knicks move, do moving forward as far as their backup point guard position goes. Because again, Brogdon, and I said it before they even came to an agreement with Malcolm Brogdon. I said this on this show that the one guy that the Knicks need to look at as far as backup point guard duties will be Malcolm Brogdon. Um, Unfortunately for the Knicks, he did decide to announce his retirement. So we're gonna, I want to just say congratulations to Malcolm Brogdon on a pretty decent career. And again, it's a pretty important role for the Knicks to fill out going into the season. But more, nevertheless, is going to be an exciting season. We are less than 6 days away from the season coming out, and listen, it's gonna be good. I'm so excited. This is the first time in a while. I want to say when the Nets put together that KD, Kyrie, and the excitement in Brooklyn was buzzing. I'm just excited to see basketball at this point, man. I'm really excited to see basketball. Um, if I do have a sleeper pick as far as MVP goes, I really have to mention this because um, one of the new rulings, one of the new NBA rules that came out was when you're the shooter, you can no longer jump and hit the shooter's hand. And I started thinking to myself, geez, what's the one player that I know right off the back that would really essentially benefit from that? I really, really started thinking about that. And the one person that I can think of is Steph Curry. So I have a favorite in my MVP in Jalen Brunson. If I had a sleeper pick for MVP, I would probably go Steph Curry. And with the several rule changes that have happened in the NBA, the high five rule is I think is going to pay dividends to Steph Curry's game, and I think ultimately that rule right there is probably going to jack up his stats in a big way. In Tuesday's preseason game against the Portland Trailblazers, he was awarded 13 free throws thanks to these rules. So, if you're looking for a beneficiary within these new rules that are going to be implemented, it will be Steph Curry, and ultimately, I wouldn't be surprised if you see an increased differential his as far as points per game goes. So again, it's possible. Again, I'm not saying that he's going to, but I do have him as a sleeper pick. And for whatever reason, when it's all said and done, and he happens to win, he will obviously become the oldest player in NBA history to win the league's MVP. So I do have Steph Curry as my sleeper pick for the league's most valuable player based on these new rules that were implemented that's going to go into effect this year. So yeah, definitely exciting uh, news as far as that comes about. But listen, man, basketball is here. I am so damn excited. Um, there's not much more you can say, man. I'm hopeful. Hopefully, I can take my dad. We can see a few games, but it's just going to be so exciting. The atmosphere both at Madison Square Garden, and for Barclays Center at that should be buzzing, just for the simple fact that you know we're getting basketball. Finally, we're getting basketball. Um, the Knicks are going to the Knicks kick off their season against a tough and gritty Cleveland Cavaliers team. That is going to be Wednesday, October 22nd. That's going to be a 7 o'clock start. And as we're going to shift towards the Brooklyn Nets. Now, obviously, this is a rebuilding year for the Brooklyn Nets. You know, a lot of draft picks that came into play. They have a lot of first round picks within the next 4 or 5 drafts. So this is going to be a longer process as far as whether these first round picks pan out. Again, they have 5 this year. So their situation is sort of similar to how the New York Jets is, where you pretty much know what you're gonna get, and considering the fact Cam Thomas, who's probably gonna be their best player this year, we don't know what the future for Cam Thomas holds. You would think that if the Nets go on a bad drought, which is expected by many, not myself included, is he going to be in a conversation for a trade? And if so, can the Nets get something? I don't know if. I mean, I would think that he's first round pick worthy. Listen, Cam Thomas is a really good basketball player. He is an exceptional scorer. I think the only knock on Cam Thomas's game is that he really doesn't play defense. So I think that's the reason why Brooklyn sort of shied away from going long term with him, considering the fact that yeah, the offense is there, the potential is there on offense as far as his playmaking ability, as far as his shooting, and this from time to time, he can pass the ball. He's no scrub by any means, but the knock on him, and since he's been in the league, has been his defense. So I stand pretty firm with the Brooklyn Nets as far as that. Can this be a year where he can improve on that and just pretty much be one of the leaders on this team? So I would say the top tier players on that team, with aside from Cam Thomas, you look at a Michael Porter Jr. Obviously, Nick Claxton, he's been there a few years, so he's going to be one of the players that the Nets look into as far as offense and defense goes, especially on the defensive end. So we'll see. We'll see what's going on. You got these excited rookies. You got the young guy Drake Powell. You got Danny Wolf. You got Igor Demin. I don't know if I'm saying it right. 6'9" point guard from Russia that everybody's just raving about. So ultimately, we'll see what this Nets team looks like. Again, it's quite unfair to expect them to look like the OKC Thunder. And essentially, the way the Nets are trying to build this team, it's in hopes of emulating what the Thunder are now. And Houston, for the most part, the Houston, they stacked up on a bunch of first round picks, and obviously you see what this Houston Rockets team looks like, today. So I think that's where the Nets try to emulate that. Would it be the same result? That is still to be determined as far as what the Nets will look maybe 2, 3 years down the road. It's definitely going to be a process. It's definitely going to be a process. It's definitely going to be a lot of anguish. It's definitely going to be a long road for this current Brooklyn Nets team. And we got to see if Sean Marks hit gold. Now, essentially, we all expect for him to hit gold with all five first round picks this year. I think that's kind of unfair, but I think if you can hit 2, maybe 3, if they show potential, then I think you'll sign up for that. The one comparison that I'm hearing about this Igor Deming kid is he's a 6'9" Russell Westbrook. I don't know if I'm gonna go that far. Again, I've seen flashes of his game. I'll be lying to you. I can't watch preseason if my life depended on it. Preseason is just the most difficult thing. Preseason in general, and I think you guys could agree with me. It's so difficult to just sit there and watch. I'd rather watch an actual regular season game where it counts and you're actually going to see these players that are going to account for something in the most important time of the game, play the game, play the game in its entirety, especially on crunch time minutes. But listen, if he's anywhere near good, anywhere near decent, where he creates some sort of buzz for the Brooklyn fan base, is going to be considered a win-win. It'll be considered a win-win, and I think Nets fans in general, they're just looking for something to just be excited about. There hasn't been any excitement. It hasn't really been any buzz since Durant and Kyrie and Harden for that point to when they left town. So you really gotta we really gotta see how this team ultimately looks within a couple of years. If you're expecting something right now, it's sort of unfair to ask that to ask Jordy Fernandez in general to have these guys, you know, averaging 20 a game, you know, 28 rebounds a game and whatnot. So we just had to see how this team mesh together. Obviously, you have, the vets right there with Michael Porter. I expect Michael Porter Jr. to have a breakout season, health permitting. That's always a question when it comes to Michael Porter. The upside is there. The offense is there. He's going to add some wing presence to this Brooklyn Nets team, but it all depends on him staying on the court. So again, really shies away from what he was doing in Denver. The primary scorers and the ball handlers there was Jamal Murray, obviously the Joker. So I look for Michael Porter Jr. to handle not only a high octane scoring role this year, but more of a leadership role too. This you got to remember this team is so young, um, and you have to see what this team is going to look like with a mixture of those veteran players and a mixture of these youth players together. So again, this is going to be a process. This is not going to be an experiment that works overnight. I think any prototypical, not even a Nets fan, but any typical basketball fan would tell you that. So again, but there's still some excitement to go in with this next team, with this Nets team, as far as what the future holds, and that's pretty much what this year is going to be. How does the future look? Does it look promising? Is it something where, you know, the prototypical net fan can be like, you know what? I'm gonna go buy a ticket. I'm gonna see what's up. I'm gonna go head down to Atlantic Avenue and catch me a game. So the opening night for the Brooklyn Nets will be Wednesday, October 22nd. They start the season on the road to go against the Charlotte Hornets. So we have the Knicks at home in Cleveland. I believe that is a national televised game to begin the season. And ultimately, man, basketball is here, baby. Basketball is here. I am so excited, man. I cannot wait to see how these new teams, these new players fit with these new teams, these teams that were so close to go to the next round and have revamped their teams. I'm talking about teams like Atlanta, teams like Orlando, teams like Detroit. I think Detroit really got themselves one of the biggest steals on the market for Duncan Robinson because aside from Kate Cunningham, I think this team needed shooting. And I think you get that. I mean, obviously, you get that in Duncan Robinson. How it comes to fruition as far as the rest of the team, we'll see. You have Isaiah Stewart coming back, and I'll be honest with you, maybe that series goes more games than it did as far as the Knicks Pistons series if Isaiah Stewart is healthy. I think he's that valuable, and I think he is that essential to what the Detroit Pistons do from a defensive standpoint. So we'll see how this ultimately plays out. But again, it's going to be exciting year. We're going to see what this Knicks team is made out of again. And I'll repeat myself again. There is no reason, health permitting, why this Knicks team cannot make it to the NBA Finals. Now, again, winning it, I'm not going to go as far as saying that. But if they can stay healthy, then maybe we can have that conversation. Maybe I'll be a little more upbeat and a little more comfortable saying that. But again, the way the Western Conference is, I'm not ready to say that. You got a lot of power horse teams in the Western Conference. Obviously, it all starts with the defending champion Oklahoma City Thunder, who still, even coming off a championship, is still considered one of the youngest teams in the NBA, which is insane. But that goes to the amazing work that the general manager did. You know, stockpiling these draft picks to not only have them good and contenders for the present, but towards the future as well too. So again, that is something that Brooklyn looks at this year as far as what they're going to throw out this year and whatnot, and we'll see ultimately what this team looks like as far as the Nets and the Knicks. But an exciting year. Look at being that we're on the conversation of the West. You know, Dallas. Dallas is a pretty good team. You got a really nice rookie class. I'm a Duke guy. I watch a lot of Duke basketball, so obviously the cream of the crop when it comes to rookies is Cooper Flag. I think Cooper Flag is going to just excel. To me, he was the most excited prospect since LeBron James, in my opinion. In my opinion, I know that's high praise, and I'm not saying that he's going to have the career of LeBron James, but as far as that excitement that he has brought this year, listen, man, and considering the fact that Dallas, he just fell in Dallas laps. Listen, let's be honest. You know, they were decimated by injuries. You know, back and forth with Anthony Davis. Obviously, the huge blow for that Dallas Mavericks team was Kyrie Irving, and when he went down um, with the torn ACL, you would expect for him to be back maybe around Christmas time, but more or less in the second half of the season, depending on how his rehab goes. And then you got your regular vets. You got Clay Thompson, who is 2 years removed from those serious injuries. You know, he had a pretty much in his stature, as far as his caliber of the player that he was. You know, he had a down year, and we have to consider the fact that, listen, when he's right, Clay Thompson is going to go down as one of the greatest 3-point shooters in NBA history. Now, can he turn back the clock and give you some of that glory that he had in his Golden State years? It's doubtful, but I still believe that he has the potential of being better than what he was last year. Now listen, I said this in a previous episode too. When it comes to like ACL injuries and things of that nature, it's very difficult to just expect a player of anybody's caliber to come back the next year at 100%. In my opinion, I always feel like when it comes to like ACLs and Achilles and things of that nature, it's pretty much a 2 year rehab. And it doesn't. And the thing with these injuries, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be back to full strength. We've seen it with Derrick Rose, and that was probably one of the most saddest injuries I've ever seen because it was a playoff game in Philadelphia. Derrick Rose was probably the hottest thing since sliced bread during that playoff year, and for him to go down the way he did was just really horrible. To this day, he is still the youngest player ever to win the NBA MVP award. I think he was 24 years old when he won it with Chicago. So we'll see what Klay Thompson can do with this Dallas Mavericks team. You know, you got the Warriors that I think they have the potential of bouncing back. They have a combination of youth and a combination of veteran players. They added Al Horford to their starting lineup. You would assume that he would be the starting center for the Golden State Warriors. They were able to lower back Jonathan Kaminga on a 2 year deal. I think it was. So you ultimately got some good scores there. Buddy Hield, right, to go along with Steph Curry. You got good, decent backup point guard as far as the Warriors adding Steph's brother and Seth. Say that four times fast. But yeah, ultimately, I'm just excited about basketball. It's going to be a great season. But again, I'm going to stick with my pick as far as the MVP and Jalen Brunson. Should we do a NBA Finals prediction? All right. So, and this is going to be a tough one. This is going to be a tough one because normally when you look at these NBA picks and stuff like that, you always see a lot of people pick the two teams that ultimately got there last year. Now, here are my pick. Here's my pick, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna explain. I'm gonna dive in as to why I have these picks. Now, for the Eastern Conference, again, I got the New York Knicks coming out of the East. I just like their upside. I just like the potential that Jalen Brunson. I think Jalen Brunson is going to have a breakout year to go along with an All Star year. I think Mike Brown's coaching style is going to ultimately benefit players that really disappeared in the playoffs. They had their moments, but as far as like making a significant impact, I think Mikael Bridges and OG Anunoby, with Mike Brown's offensive style is going to play. They're going to be the two players that pay dividends to this offensive style. So I think that's going to also help Brunson take the load off of him. But I do expect Brunson to be a 26, 27 point per game type of player this year. And hopefully that's enough for him to take home MVP. Again, one of the Achilles heels for the New York Knicks was their bench. I think they addressed that to the best of their ability. They still need to go and find a point guard. Whether they believe that Spencer Dinwiddie is still to be seen, or whether it's someone that we're not looking at that will potentially go under the radar. And another thing that I didn't talk about earlier, we all know about the Giannis rumors, and his link to the New York Knicks. Depending on where the Knicks are at, and they feel like they could shift gears, do they break apart what they have right now and just put all their chips on the table and say, you know what, let's pull the trigger if it ultimately means getting a guy like Giannis? Now, again, I don't know what a trade would look like, but I would ultimately, if I had to make an assumption of some sorts, I would assume that anybody, with the exception of Carl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson, will be off limits. And obviously, we're talking, first round picks, pick swaps, some sort of draft compensation going Milwaukee's way in return for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, is this going to be a situation where, and this is where I'm a little bit concerned for this Knicks team because again, they're coming with a lot of expectations. This is the first time in a long time this team has had championship aspirations and expectations coming into this year. So I'm wondering how long would it take for this Knicks team to, number one, adapt to Mike Brown's type of offense because it is very, very different to what Tom Thibodeau had in play the past 5 years for the New York Knicks. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Brunson and company adapts to the offensive style and ultimately what they look like on defense as well. And does the Giannis rumors play a factor in the locker room? Does it ultimately end up being a dark cloud over his team as far as, man, is it gonna happen? Is it not gonna happen? Because I can sort of see the, and I hope not. I hope not, because I think I speak for all New York sports fans. We are just seething right now to have some sort of happiness, some sort of success from a New York team, and I hope that it comes to the chagrin of either the New York Knicks or the Brooklyn Nets, at that point. But we'll see what that happens. But my only fear is, obviously the adapt the adaptation as far as the offense and defense goes, how long it takes, and whether the trade rumors become a distraction ultimately. I hope that's not the case, and I hope that the Knicks come night one against Cleveland, they're just ready to play ball. Obviously, Cleveland is going to be one of those teams that we talk about when it comes to leading the one of those contenders in the Eastern Conference, along with the other teams that I mentioned, as far as Orlando, as far as Atlanta, as far as Detroit goes. So we'll see how that Eastern Conference runs up. So again, I'm going to go with the New York Knicks as my pick for the to come out the East. In the Western Conference, I am going to go with the Denver Nuggets. I feel like the Denver Nuggets did an amazing job of adding to their core of offense that they have, and it's just the roster in general. I really like their roster. Roster is really good. Obviously you got Gordon there who had a pretty good playoff performance. Obviously that team, just like coffee on Dunkin' Donuts, that team pretty much runs on Jokic. So, however Jokic goes, how far Jokic goes, how far this team goes ultimately decides on the health and the play of Nikola Jokic. But I do like the moves that they made acquiring Cam Johnson from the Brooklyn Nets. He is pretty much a 3 and D guy. He'll play defense. He has the upside, 6'7", can hit the three ball, you know, at an amazing level. I think he was sort of in the upper 40% range when it came to 3-point percentage differential last year. So I think just this team adding more shooting is going to be essential. They ultimately they re-signed Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown played dividend to their championship year that they had a couple of years ago. So those two additions, I think, is gonna catapult Denver, over teams like OKC and stuff like that. I got OKC and Denver, health permitting. I got them in the conference finals. I know everybody is drooling over what Houston has done and stuff like that, but Houston has a big question mark as far as the point guard role, with Fred VanVleet, going down with a torn ACL. But so I got to really see what Houston is going to look like for me to be like, okay, well, I can see them going over Denver. I could see them beating OKC in a 7-game series. So there you have it. I got the New York Knicks and the Denver Nuggets. You guys could hit me up and let me know what you think. But I just want to take time to thank you guys. Like and subscribe to the page. I am working on a TikTok, you know, so you guys will have an additional platform to not only see more of me or get updates as far as like breaking news or obviously start time with the show and stuff like that. So I am working on that. Hopefully by the end of the month I'll have that up and running for you guys to go to take a look at and stuff like that. But again, thank you guys for tuning in as you do every week. Again, like and subscribe to the Our Time Press YouTube page, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
Distracted. Okay. How was your show tonight, man?
Well, pretty good.
Went good.
Pretty good.
Okay.
A lot to talk about. Gotta mention how horrible the Jets are. NBA season starts this Tuesday, so
Yeah.
high praise for the New York Knicks. I don't think they had championship aspirations since I was about 12. So.
Dude, I know I'm older than you. Let me tell you, it was that bad when I was a kid. They used to always make it to the playoff.
Right.
And no, it wasn't. See, listen, I'm not a sports guy.
Right.
Right. Well, playoff. What's the last when you make it to
the finals?
The finals, right?
1999. That was the lockout year.
Okay. So I got like this. I'm calling like the early late 70s.
Okay.
They'll get there and then they fall off.
Right.
Like, no energy.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Ewing days. Them days, right? Even before him, Willis Reed, and it's like I lost interest in the Knicks. So I left them alone till to the day. I really leave them alone. I like Brooklyn Nets. I always did like Jersey.
Yeah.
I got some pictures with the coach the other day.
All right.
Because they did some on Horsley Street.
Okay.
So I got a picture with me and the Nets and the cheerleaders.
Right.
Live picture, because they shut down Horsley Street. I'm surprised you wasn't there. You didn't hear about that?
No, I didn't hear about it. I definitely would have attended.
If we had VIP, I could have got you in there.
Oh, man, yeah. You should.
Oh, man. Well, maybe next year.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Yeah. So take your time, whatever you want to do, brother.
Yeah.
We're still live downstairs. So.
All right. So, but we're not live now, right?
No, I shut it down.
All right, cool.
Everything's good.
Yeah, so no, everything is good.
How often do he put you on? Well, PJ does it, right? She edited everything and puts it on. You do it like daily, your show will be on tonight.
Yeah,
okay.
She'll post it about tonight.
So right now you can call her. She probably already doing this where she at now. She probably got it going.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yeah. Call up and see if I need to do anything else. All right, quick. This is Dewey's crackers. Everything yours.
Yo, those are Dewey's right there.
No hide, divide. Yeah, you couldn't do nothing, so I end the screen. That's
right.
Oh my God. I'm doing all right. End it. No.